What is knowledge? Well, we all think we know. We all think knowledge is different than belief. Today I'm going to argue exactly the opposite. I'm going to maintain what Plato maintained 2,500 years ago, that knowledge is belief, and he couldn't tell the difference. In the end, after doing all his footwork, okay, he couldn't figure it out. Okay, so one person comes in here and says, you are unfortunately using Plato and his justified true belief crap. I love that. Okay, but yeah, Plato said knowledge is belief, but and I say the same thing. There's no difference between knowledge and belief. A lot of people don't like to hear me say that. Okay, I feel for you deep in my heart. So what you need to do is define knowledge, not tell me what it ain't. Tell me what it is. Okay? That's what you're tasked with. Okay, you got to tell me what knowledge is. And for this, let's make sure we at least cross the T and dot the I there, that we cover Mr. Plato, so that I mean he really covered the word knowledge quite well. Okay, he covered in this book. Okay, it's called the Theaetetus, and he says Socrates. He's got this discussion among Socrates and his students. A couple visitors that came in there. Okay, and Socrates says, "What is knowledge?" And Theaetetus says, "He who knows perceives what he knows. Knowledge is perception." Perception, again, Ayn Rand, she talked about perception. Every one of these people talks about perception. See, touch, okay, see, touch, perception, senses. That's what they thought an object is all these years. That's what they identify existence with. So knowledge is very much related to the word existence, and the word entity, object, thing. Okay, we're going to see that constantly. These three words are constantly intertwined. Okay, so what does Socrates say? Well, he's got three arguments essentially. Those are not his exact words. I'm just going to put his conclusions. This is Plato speaking for Socrates, who by then had been forced to commit suicide. Okay, he was forced to drink hemlock for corrupting the youth and offending the gods of Greece. And so this is what Socrates says. He says, perception is inseparable from the perceiver. Yeah. Okay. Perception, perceiver, it's like they go together. Senses, see, touch, see, touch, see, touch. But he makes a good argument. He says there's a problem of memory. Why? Because when the perception is gone, right, you touch something, now a minute later you're no longer perceiving that thing, but you have it in memory. And so now you're not perceiving directly, but you have the memory of the perception. And as he says, if knowledge is perception, is the knowledge gone now that you no longer perceive, no longer see, touch, now you have it in your mind? Okay, that's the argument he raises. Okay, this is the train of thought. Okay, and then Plato, again, speaking for Socrates, says, other people may misperceive. Okay, in other words, someone may have the wrong perception. Again, he could be on drugs, he could be flying high, he could be out of his mind. And does that mean that we have to trust his perception? You know, so again, you got to keep all these things in mind, that these are the arguments that Plato raised. Okay, and so this is what Plato concludes, essentially. You know, he says, in that book, Theaetetus, says, knowledge, a true judgment with an account. That's essentially his conclusion, and that's translated today as justified true belief. What is knowledge? Belief. Ultimately, belief. Especially when justified and true are synonyms of belief. So justified is belief, true is belief, and belief is belief. So all he said is knowledge is belief, belief, belief. That's all he said. It's just a lot of belief. And he tried to put in there, you know, when you say justified true belief, you're kind of including something which is external. Like there's a truth out there, okay, and you have a belief. And the question is whether knowledge is that belief in that truth that is out there. But if that truth, we all have different truths, we all have different proofs in our head, we have different evidences for the same thing. You know, someone says, well, God exists, the other one says God doesn't exist, and I have the proof and he has the proof as well. So, you know, is God truth? Well, it all comes down back to belief. You can't escape belief. And so the fact that you say, well, there's a truth out there, yeah, you can say that Mother Nature, Father Universe, you know, they know what the truth is. They know what exactly happened. But we don't have access to their file cabinet. So every person, 8 billion people on earth, we all have different notions of what actually happened. Okay, so we have our beliefs, and that truth becomes a belief after the fact. Okay? So Mother Nature and Father Universe, they know exactly what happens and what is. They know that. You can say they know, okay? But we can only guess. We can only have our beliefs And we call that belief knowledge because I'm certain of it, I'm convinced of it, but you are not. So we have beliefs. So yeah, even though truth suggests something external, okay, like Mother Nature knows the truth, yeah, but we don't have access to that truth. We only have our version of the truth, our version of the fact is a belief. So all we have is belief. Now this comes back down to belief. And when you look up the word belief, what do you find? Well, something one accepts as true and or real. A firmly held opinion. Sounds quite a bit like knowledge. You know, when you know something, well, you know it. No one's going to take you out of that because you know it. You're certain of it. You know that it happened or that it is. And someone else tries to convince you of the opposite. You know, says, no, look, that's not what happened. That's not what it is. You say, no, but I know it. Means you believe it. When you know, you believe more strongly. That's all. You just believe more strongly what you know. That's all it is. Because when you know, that means you have nothing to learn because you've already learned it. No one can shake you out of your knowledge. Meaning, knowledge is just a stronger belief. That's all it is. Okay, that's what it comes down to. And you look at the synonyms for belief, and it says trust, faith, opinion, conviction, judgment, dogma. Sounds like knowledge. Right? Quite like knowledge. I don't see a difference. But if you do, all you have to do is define the word knowledge, and then maybe we can get the ball rolling here. Because if you think that knowledge is anything other than belief, which is what everyone from Plato to our days, all these people who study knowledge out there, all the philosophers, so-called philosophers, you know, if after 3,000 years they concluded that there's no difference between Plato and what we have today, meaning knowledge is belief, then if you have something different, then your job is to define it in such a way that you can defend it and say, I can show you how knowledge is different than belief. And you have to do that through definitions. You know, don't give me a long explanation, just define it. And that will do, you know, show me how knowledge is different than belief. Anyways, these are the conclusions we find today, okay, out there. This is from the Wikipedia. Socrates and Theaetetus discuss three definitions of knowledge, okay? Knowledge is nothing but perception. It's true judgment and true judgment with an account. And then it summarizes, says, each of these definitions is shown to be unsatisfactory. What does the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, word that they never define, say? The official conclusion of the Theaetetus is that we still do not know how to define knowledge. Okay? So that's out of Plato. They're just analyzing Plato. Let's see if they've done any better since Plato. Okay? And you go out there and this is what you find. Okay? Again, knowledge is familiarity or awareness of someone or something. What does that mean? What is familiarity or awareness? And there is wide agreement among philosophers that it is a form of true belief. What is knowledge? It's belief. Okay, that's after 3,000 years. This is their conclusion. What's dictionary.com say? Knowledge, acquaintance with facts, truths, or principles. Acquaintance, what is it? Known to one. That sounds like belief. Okay, and yeah, there's a summary. Familiarity, acquaintance with, being aware. Is that what knowledge is? Because if that's what it is, yeah, it's personal, subjective, and meaning it's belief. We still haven't, gotten out of belief. Here's the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. This is what they say about knowledge. The analysis says, traditional approaches to knowledge have it that knowledge has to do with factors like truth and justification. Meaning, what? Belief. Okay? Whether knowledge requires safety, sensitivity, reliability, or independence from certain kinds of luck has proven controversial. But something that all these potential conditions on knowledge seem to have in common is that they have some sort of intimate connection with belief. Although it is admittedly difficult to make the relevant connection precise, there is an intuitive sense in which every factor we've examined as a candidate for being relevant to knowledge has something to do with beliefs. So what have we concluded after 3,000 years, after analyzing the Gettier problem and all these other nonsense things that they put in there? Knowledge is belief. Okay? You don't like it because you think knowledge is something different? Define it. Don't tell me that I'm wrong. Don't tell me that I got the wrong references. Define it. Show me that knowledge is not belief. Okay? Remove the word belief or any synonym with belief from your definition. Okay, and this is what Ayn Rand said about knowledge. Okay, we got to touch her as well because she touched the word. Knowledge is a mental grasp. Whoa, she's going to be touching the mind. That's great. She mentally grasps something, whatever that means. I mean, they use these physical terms to define a concept, an abstract concept such as knowledge. Of a fact of reality. What is a fact? It's belief. Because whatever is a fact of reality is your personal opinion. That's all it is. reached either by what? Perceptual observation. What is perceived? Opinion. What is observed? Opinion. So, or by a process of reason based on perceptual observation. So, again, all she gave us is the word belief in different ways. She gave us opinion, which is, again, a belief. Recommendations, that's all she did, which is belief. It's all belief. Ayn Rand was not a philosopher. She was not a knower of or a lover of knowledge. All she did was give you recommendations on how to live, on how to do politics, on the best way to run the world. That's it. You know, she was not a philosopher. Philosopher is someone who explains something if it's going to be part of science. And if you say, well, I'm going to study at the university, I'm going to study philosophy, what are you going to study? Recommendations? Is that what your major is? Oh, I study recommendations. I study on how to do politics, on how to do what to believe in, you know, religion, etc., opinions. Is that what philosophy is? Just study of nonsense, of opinions? So that's why we need to define the word philosophy. If you're going to go to university and study philosophy, hopefully you're studying something that is scientific, meaning that you explain something. How do we define knowledge here? And this is how we end our philosophy and knowledge segment. And for this, you need to find out what these people have been thinking about all these hundreds of years, thousands of years. What do you think knowledge is? I mean, what is the purpose of knowledge? What are you trying to achieve when you say you know something? How do you prove to someone else that you know something? And I gave the example the other day of, do you know that Napoleon went to Waterloo in 1815? Do you know that Napoleon even existed? Prove it. Prove it. I want you to prove it. What are you going to do? Bring Napoleon here? And even if you did, I'm saying, well, that's in 2022. It's not in 1815 when he went to Waterloo. So that's not the same Napoleon. I mean, I can raise a million arguments against you. You cannot prove the existence of Napoleon in 1815, much less prove to me that Napoleon went to Waterloo. There's no way to prove such a thing. And this goes to the Moonies who believe that, you know, Neil Armstrong did not land on the moon, you know, in 1969. I cannot prove it to you. I cannot bring you Neil Armstrong in 1969 today, the real thing. I can give you a picture, a movie, you know, but not the real thing. I cannot reproduce it and say, look, here it is. Because even then you would say, well, that's not, he did so today, but not in 1969. So even that would fail. There's no way to prove it. Okay, so how do you prove knowledge? How do you show knowledge? What do we mean by knowledge? And again, I clarify that we don't use words like time or knowledge in science. Those words belong exclusively to religion. Okay? We don't use the word time or knowledge in science, but we do define these words to show what the mathematicians and the so-called philosophers meant by these words for the last 3,000 years. Okay, and so here it is. Here's the word knowledge, what we need to figure out about it. Okay, if you want to take it as an action item, if you want to define the word knowledge, here's a hint. Okay, so here we go. The best approach for arriving at a definition of knowledge is to brainstorm the properties we typically associate with this formidable word. Knowledge seems to enjoy three essential features, to wit, what you demonstrate to others. Okay, you take the test or you go in front of a three-panel judge at the university and say, I'm going to show you my knowledge. I'm going to prove to you my knowledge. I want to show you how much I know, right? Well, you demonstrate it to someone else. That's how you prove that you know, you regurgitate what you know. Okay, that's one issue. Then in a single experiment, okay, because if I talk about, Napoleon, that's not knowledge. That's just, I'm regurgitating something I memorized. Is that knowledge? Do you know that Napoleon existed? Do you know that Napoleon went to Waterloo? No, so you cannot do that. But what I can show you, for example, is an experiment and do it in front of you and say, look, I know what's going to happen. And here it is. I let go of my pencil and I say, I know, right? I know that it's going to fall to the floor. So I let go of it and it falls to the floor and I proved my knowledge, right? So not only do I demonstrate my knowledge, but I'm also going to run an experiment to show that I know what's going to happen, okay? And in the future as opposed to the past. I cannot know the past because then I cannot reproduce it. And again, this goes to the Moonies, people who don't believe we landed on the moon. Why? Because there's no way I can show you anything that happened before today. I can't prove to you, I cannot know it, I cannot demonstrate it to you because whatever happened, the best I can show you is a movie. And even that you're going to question and say, well, that was done in Hollywood or whatever. So it's got to be the future. Knowledge has to do only with the future. You can't know anything of the past. You can only know something of the future. like God, the block universe. He knows what's going to happen in the future because he's all-knowing, he's omniscient, right? So he knows exactly what's going to happen in the future, to you, to anybody, right? Supposedly, right? So we have the three criteria there. What you demonstrate to others in a single experiment, and the future as opposed to the past. Okay? The way you demonstrate knowledge is to someone is by predicting what is going to happen in a specific experiment. And so here we have the definition, okay? It was from Why God Doesn't Exist. My book says, knowledge, the ability to predict the outcome of a specific experiment precisely. Okay? Ability to predict the outcome of a specific experiment precisely. That's what knowledge has meant all these years. Is there such a thing as knowledge? The answer is no. There is no monster as knowledge. Not even God has knowledge. He's not omniscient. Okay? Why? Because, very simple. You say, well, Bill, you let go of the pencil and it fell to the floor and you predicted, and you can predict it precisely. Okay, so I do the experiment and it falls to the floor. Say, do it again, Bill. I don't believe you. Okay, so I do it again. Repeatable experiment. And I keep doing that and I say, okay, see, I proved it to you. I proved my knowledge. Do it again, Bill. Okay, so I said one more time. I let go of the pencil and it stays up in the air. And you say, whoa. I thought you predicted it was going to fall. It turns out that it did not fall. It stayed in the air. It turns out that you did not know that I had two magnets and that pencil had, a metal bar in it instead of a lead, piece. And so I held it up in the air with two magnets, which you did not know. You knew that horse is going to win the race. You knew for a fact because the others were so rotten, so bad. And you voted on horse number 5. I voted on horse number 10. But he says, there's no way number 10 will win because it's the worst horse in the lot. And he's got a crooked leg, and there's no way that horse is going to make it. What you did not know is that I had a gun and I killed all the other horses. And the only one that crossed the finish line was my horse. Okay, so you cannot predict the future exactly because we do not know everything. And because we do not know everything, there is no such thing as knowledge, which is to predict the future, the results of an experiment exactly without error. That's what we mean by the word knowledge. There is no such thing as knowledge.